We're going to try another flipped lesson. This one is pretty short. So we're going to do section 3 of chapter 2, solving multi-step equations. So please write all this down in your notebook. If you need to pause the video, pause the video. If you have questions along the way, pause the video, write the question in your notebook, and we can go over that tomorrow during class. So, solving multi-step equations. You're going to write down these steps. So the first step, simplify each side of the equation. I'll show you in the next slide what I mean. Then you're going to distribute numbers to remove parentheses. Then you're going to use reverse PEMDAS like we have already been doing in the first couple sections of this chapter. So write this down, and we're going to use this to solve some problems. So I should see all this in your notebook. If you need to pause the video, pause the video. When you're ready to move on, just hit play. All right, here's my first equation. So I'm going to rewrite the rules. You don't need to, but you do need to write down example 1 and the example. Okay. So here are my steps. So I want to first simplify each side of the equation. Okay, both sides are pretty simple. Then I want to distribute the numbers to remove my parentheses. So I'm going to distribute that just to my parentheses. I can't go any place beyond my parentheses. So I have 3/5 x minus 3/5 times 5 equals 3. So I can cross-cancel these two 5s because 5 divided by 5 is 1, so they pretty much disappear. So now I have 3/5 x minus 3 equals 3. So remember, I want to tell a complete story. Again, you're writing this all in your notebook. I want to see what you're doing to both sides of the equation. I'm adding 3 to both sides. I'm showing that I'm not playing favorites, showing that this actually disappears. So now I have 3/5 x equals 6 because I added those together. Okay, so now I have 3/5 x equals 6. So really 3/5 is 3 divided by 5. So I want the opposite. So I'm going to do the opposite to both sides, and I'm going to do 5/3 times both sides. And if it helps, you can put that in perspective by putting the 6/1. I'm going to make sure all of my numbers cross-cancel. Then on this side, on my right side, I know 6 divided by 3 is 2. So now I have x equals 10. Again, I'm showing my story. My work all lines up with my equal sign, and I have my answer at the bottom of my upside down triangle so that your work is organized. I can follow the story. You can follow the story. And if we make a mistake, we can see where we've made that mistake. Make sure to write that in your notebook. If you need to pause the video, pause the video. If you have questions, write those questions down so we can go over those. Now you're going to try some on your own. So you have 2 different problems that you're going to do. So you're going to solve both of these in your notebooks. You can write them down. You're going to keep them organized in your notebook. You're going to follow the steps. So this one, the first one, you might need to clean up this right side first. This one on the other side, you're going to need to get rid of those parentheses. Please notice there's a little -5 there hanging out trying to trick you. So go ahead and solve those in your notebook. You're going to need to pause the video. Then you're going to enter in your answers on the right. So you should see a text box on the right. Okay, now you're going to check your answer to see how you solved versus how Mrs. Miller solved it, making sure we both have done it correctly. So the one on the left, notice I have combined all like terms, and now I'm left with -15 equals 3b, plus 18. The one on the right, I got rid of my parentheses. So let's follow the one on the left first. I'm going to subtract 18 because I want to make that disappear. So I'm going to do that the same on both sides. And now I have 3b equals 33, and it's a -33 because these are both negatives, and now I have a bigger negative. So now I'm going to divide each side by 3. My 3/3 disappears because that's 1. So now I have b equals -11. The one on the right, I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. So now I have a -10x equals, these signs are different. So I'm going to get the difference, which I think is 9. Right? And it's a negative because my 15 is a bigger number. So now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 10 so that x is all by itself. Now notice I have two negatives, so those become positives. So I have x equals 9/10. So go ahead and make sure you did that correctly. All right, now everybody's favorite word problem. You will copy this down into your notebook, so I want to see this in your notebook because this is pretty much the last one. Okay, so 8 Catalina students set a goal of selling 424 boxes of candy to raise money for field trips. After 2 weeks, each student has sold 28 boxes. How many more boxes must each student sell? So, in a word problem, the first thing you need to do is write down the equation. If you can just problem solve and get the answer, great, but you can't get full credit unless you give me an equation. So in this one, I know they need to sell 424 boxes. I know there's 8 students. I know they've already sold 28. Now I need to figure out how many boxes they still need to sell. So here's my equation. Now, there's 2 different ways I can solve this. I can actually distribute the 8 and then have some huge numbers. Or if I can just divide each side by 8, because I know 424 divided by 8 is 53. Just makes the math easier. I'm going to subtract 28 from each side. So I know B equals 25. So each student needs to sell 25 more boxes. So write this down in your notebook. Make sure you understand where all the numbers come from. Notice the after 2 weeks is irrelevant, has nothing to do with our equation. So write this down, and then you're going to try one on your own. Okay, here's a you try. Your class goes to Six Flags Amusement Park. Admission is $35 each student and $45 for adults. The total cost of the trip is $1,285. There are 12 girls and 6 chaperones. How many boys are on the trip? So you're going to have to set up an equation and solve it. So you should see a text box on the right. So again, pause the video, write this down, write the equation, and solve it. Perfect. Now that you've solved it, check your answer. So make corrections if you need to. So here's my equation. The total cost was $1,285. Right, so admission is $35 per the kid. So I know I have 12 girls. I don't know how many boys I have. And then I know I need to add the adults. So there were 6 adults, $45 each. So now I want to get rid of my parentheses. So I distributed, got rid of my parentheses. I'm going to probably combine terms to make it a little bit neater. So I added my 420 to my 270. You don't need to, but I'm just showing my work as I go. Now I'm going to subtract 690 from each side. Now I'm going to divide each side by 35. So 17 boys were on the trip. So make sure you have all this in your notes. If you have questions, write them on the side. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.